Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SavvyCast. This is Jamie, and I'm thrilled that you're here today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. I am thrilled today to have a guest who is extremely knowledgeable about how we can keep our bodies their healthiest, not only by eliminating things that are harmful and incorporating things that are helpful, but she's also written a wonderful book that I'm going to hold up for my YouTube friends. And I'll also link to this in the show notes. Meals That Heal, One Pot. This is way more than a cookbook. It's a guide to all things that you need to know about foods that are good for you, foods that are bad, how to organize a healthy pantry, and how to cook quick and easy weeknight meals that are healthy for busy people. Okay, Carolyn Williams is my guest today. She is an author, a dietitian, and an award-winning food and health journalist. Carolyn is based here in Alabama, and she's the founder of Meals That Heal, and she can be found on Instagram. She has a website, and she also hosts the Happy Eating podcast. I'll link to all of the ways that you can connect with Carolyn. I'm thrilled to have her here today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Carolyn Williams to the SavvyCast. Hi, Carolyn. Thank you so much for being on the SavvyCast today.
Thank you for having me. We've been trying to get together for so long, so I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we have, and we're still in a little bit of renovation. That's why, I've had so much trouble getting you on because it hasn't been quiet. If there's a little bit of drilling, everyone just ignore because we're trying to round out this project. But anyway, Carolyn, I am so thrilled to have you, and all of you watching and listening, you are going to learn so much from anything Carolyn shares. I'm also going to link to her two books, one of which I'm holding here, Meals That Heal, One Pot. There's a Meals That Heal book as well. Carolyn co-hosts a podcast. She's got a fabulous website. So all of those things will be on the show notes. But today, Carolyn, what I thought might be good is if you would share with us maybe 3 things we can get rid of in our kitchen or pantry, and maybe 3 things we can bring on that we may not currently have in our kitchen that would make a big difference and be a big jump start to better health.
Definitely. And, I think I like to share with people before I do that how I got into inflammation. Both of my cookbooks that you mentioned are quick and easy anti-inflammatory eating. But if I am being completely honest, 7 years ago, maybe even 5, as many as 5 years ago, inflammation was not anywhere on my radar as a dietitian. If you had told me I would write 2 cookbooks on anti-inflammatory eating, I would have said you got the wrong person. And then I was one of my first jobs was as a cookbook editor, I probably might have gone as far and said, I will never sell. So here I am writing anti-inflammatory cookbooks. So I like to just share how I got here, just because I think it helps people understand why inflammation should be on everyone's radar, even if you're really healthy.
Right.
So I guess it was in 2017, Cooking Light magazine asked me to write an article on Alzheimer's. And it was on the impacts that foods may have on Alzheimer's prevention and then just slowing the progression. And honestly, I had never looked into that before because when I was in college, it's going to date me some, we didn't even touch brain health and nutrition. There was nothing on that at all.
Right.
And so whenever I write any kind of content, I really just have to do a deep dive and just heavy research and then come up and write the article.
And to clarify, and I did say in the intro, but to clarify again, you are a registered dietitian you just also happen to be a prolific writer and researcher as well, but you've got the whole package.
Yes. So what I learned is that Alzheimer's, it develops, what is characteristic are the plaque and tangles that develop in the brain, and it stops communication. And that's where you see the memory loss and that kind of thing. And there are some key foods that really appear preventative or to decrease your risk or slow the progression. And I was just a freelancer writing this article. I had no idea that this was going to be like their signature article of the year that they were going to submit for awards. So fast forward, a few months and find out it's been nominated for a James Beard Journalism Award.
Whoa.
And I was on spring break when it happened, and we were out of the country. And so when I turned my phone up, all these texts like, congrats, like, what are they talking about?
That's amazing.
Fabulous surprise. But I didn't even consider that the article might win. And, fast forward a few more months, and it won a James Beard Journalism Award in the food and health category. So I wish I could say that from there on out, it was inflammation. It was not, though. I did what probably a lot of us, particularly females, do. I just went on with my to-do list. Okay, what's due today? What's due in a month, and for the next few months, I was writing articles on a variety of topics like I normally do, all with some tie to nutrition, but, on autoimmune stuff, on heart health, high blood pressure. There was a lot at the time. Intermittent fasting was a big topic.
Mm-hmm.
Just all these different conditions that to me seemed very different and unrelated. So when I finally chilled out and took a vacation, and I vividly remember this, I was sitting on the beach and I was just thinking about, okay, what I'd written and kind of where I wanted the direction of my writing to go in the next year. And it was really like a light bulb moment. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, all these topics that I've been writing about, health conditions that have seemed so vastly different to me and separate. There is one thing that I saw in the research for every single one of them. There's one common thread, and that was chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation was a key driver, if not a cause. It certainly progressed the development. And it really was like a light bulb moment. I thought, oh my gosh, we don't need all these different diets. We need an anti-inflammatory approach. I thought, well, something's wrong, Carolyn, because you can't be the first one to think of this. Why aren't we doing it? And so, after that, I was like, okay, am I totally off base here? Why aren't we promoting an anti-inflammatory lifestyle? But while I was sitting on the beach, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to get my parents eating this way. And then I thought, well, I'm not getting younger. I need to be eating this way. And then my mind went to my kids who were probably 8 and maybe 11 at the time. And I thought, oh my gosh, what if I could actually get them to adopt some of these anti-inflammatory eating habits? Like, how might that change the trajectory of their health in 30 or 40 years? And so then I was like, okay, how do I do this? Because this is really overwhelming to me. And I thought, I'm a food person, I'm a dietitian, and this totally overwhelmed me in trying to figure out how to implement this in my family's life. And so it became kind of a challenge. And that's where my first book, Meals That Heal, came from. I wanted, I tell a lot of people, I love food. That's how I got into it. I love nutrition. But as a mom in this stage of life, the last thing I want to do most nights is cook dinner.
Yeah.
And I know, it's a chore right now. It's one more thing, the last thing on my to-do list each day. But I'm a foodie. I love good food. So, these recipes, they've got to be really good. Like, I want to be excited about leftovers the next day if we have any leftovers. It's got to please the whole family. It's got to be healthy, though. And it's got to be quick. So that's really where the inspiration for both of my cookbooks came from.
Okay. I love that. Everything that you just said on so many levels, because what you did is you found the common denominator of a lot of different inflammation disorders. I have an autoimmune disorder.
Mm-hmm.
2 of my children do, but you've sort of put together the crux of what causes a lot of that. And then in your recipes and in your checklists of pantry staples, you're helping people who are busy, like we all are,
Mm-hmm.
implement changes gradually that will eventually reduce inflammation, which we have control over largely, at least a lot of control.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these recipes. And I'm a foodie too. They're wonderful. They're very delicious and they're easy. So if we're busy, we don't have an excuse for anything in this book. So, and I know that there are, because I've been reading voraciously this book. I know there are way more than 3 things that we need, that most of us probably need to get out of our pantry, out of our fridge, and more than 3 that we need to bring in. But I find personally, and probably for a lot of us, we start with a few steps. And then when we start feeling better, having better blood work, then we can say, hey, let's move to the next step and the next and the next. So
it's so important people start small.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that, at times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, well, Carolyn, give us a starting point for things that we can go out and clean out.
Well, when people come to me, say, how can I reduce inflammation? How can I eat healthier? Usually the next question they ask is, what do I need to get rid of? What do I need to cut out?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're surprised by my answer, because I will say, hold on. Yes, we need to clean up your diet some, because everybody could, including my own, could use some cleanup. But we need to start first with adding things. And there's 3 foods I want you to focus on adding. There is so much power in the compounds and nutrients in these foods, and people are getting not near enough. There's so much anti-inflammatory power. There's so much disease protection in these 3 categories of foods. And so, we may be filling up on a lot of junk, a lot of garbage in our diet, but we aren't getting near enough of the good stuff we need. So the 3 foods that I tell people where to start first, and you can start by adding all 3, or you can start with 1 at a time and, slowly build. But first one is leafy greens.
Okay.
So the strongest research when it comes to disease prevention, particularly heart health, just overall health, is with leafy greens.
Okay.
And
kale.
research.
Can you specify kale, collards?
It could be spinach, baby spinach, but even if it's like romaine, of course, darker it usually has more nutrients, but just get a cup of lettuce, greens, just focus on getting a cup a day.
Oh,
that's it. And, it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm eating my cup of leafy greens and my salad today. You can spread those greens out. Like, you can throw some baby spinach in your egg that morning.
Yeah.
You can add some to a wrap later. So it doesn't have to be a salad. I like to keep baby spinach on hand because I can use it for both salads and grain bowls, but also I can stir it into like saucy skillet dishes or my spaghetti sauce, and it just will.
So you don't even know it's there.
Yeah. And so it keeps me from not using leafy greens that sometimes sit in our refrigerator, because I can use it both ways.
So would you say probably the most well received by anyone, because there are lots of leafy greens. Everyone's not going to be a fan of kale or some things, but baby spinach is probably one of the mildest, easiest to incorporate in anything. Would you say?
If you're talking, yes, especially as a darker green, baby spinach is great because, again, you can use it hot and cold dishes.
Mm-hmm.
So, you don't tend to waste it, or it doesn't go to waste.
Okay. And I will say, and I know you know this, but some others may not, and I think I did an Instagram reel. If you have a leftover half bag of that, you can spread it on a baking sheet, stick it in the freezer for about an hour, take it out, and all the frozen little leaves, stick them in a freezer bag, get the air out, and you have frozen spinach that you can just toss in. It's really
I did not know that.
Yes, and you can actually buy the frozen leaves now, but it's so easy. And I always have like a third of a bag left and we're about to go on a trip. So now I just freeze it, stick it in the bag, and it's so easy to pull out. And then you can crumble it into eggs or whatever. You don't have to chop it. When it's leafy, you've sort of got to chop it and it's, soft. But when it's frozen, you can just crumble it directly into eggs or whatever. But
I love it.
Little tip. But okay, so 1 cup a day of leafy greens, spinach or whatever. That's easy. Okay.
That's easy. Okay. The second one, most people probably think this one is even easier. Get 2 to 3 cups of berries a week. Fresh or frozen, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, it does not matter. The anthocyanin compounds in there are so powerful, particularly for our brain health, but also just disease prevention, like heart health, and just tamping down that inflammation. So just get 2 to 3 cups of berries a week.
And it does not matter fresh or frozen.
Frozen sometimes even has more nutrients, because at a lot of your harvesting places, they will flash freeze berries like an hour after they pick them, and which locks in the nutrients, because berries are pretty much any produce. Once you pick it, it's going to slowly lose nutrients. So don't feel bad about buying frozen.
So even maybe a mixture, and I know you can get them at Costco, where it's got 3 different berries: strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. Would you say those, since they all have a little bit of a different makeup, might even be a bigger bang for the buck?
Yeah.
Okay. That
potentially. And there's another one, and I believe you can find it at Costco and pretty much any grocery: wild blueberries. Look for frozen. You're only going to find them frozen. They sound like what you just pick off your grandmother's bush, on the outskirts of the yard. And it took me a while. I had to realize, no, these are an actual type of blueberry. They're only grown right around the main area. And they're much smaller, but they're much more concentrated in their antioxidants and phytochemicals. And so if you really want, the biggest bang for your buck from the frozen food section, get wild blueberries, but a mix of berries too is great.
Yes. And I did happen to know that about the wild blueberries. I don't know where I read that, but I do you can buy them Publix, Sprouts, Whole Foods, and they're like half the size, but it'll say wild blueberries. I think Wyman's is a very common brand, and they're great. They don't taste any different, but yes, they're more potent. So 2 to 3 cups of berries per week. That is easy. Smoothies. A little,
or just snacking, or throw on a salad, or
top of yogurt with a little granola. Okay, I love this. These are so doable.
So very doable, not overwhelming. Right. Okay, the third one: get around at least 5 servings. Just aim for 5 of cruciferous vegetables each week. Now, cruciferous vegetables, I tell people to help them identify which they are. These are the ones that usually stink when you're cooking. Your cauliflower, your broccoli,
your Brussels.
Kale is one. Yeah, your Brussels sprouts. There are some dark leafy greens like kale, which also classify, so you can kind of double dip with the leafy greens and the cruciferous there. But the reason they stink is they have these powerful sulfur compounds. And particularly when it comes to cancer prevention, but again, just overall health, they act as antioxidants, they reduce inflammation. So 5 servings a week. It can be a wide variety. It doesn't matter. And that's it. Probably the cruciferous one is the hardest for some people, but really doable.
Okay. These are extremely doable. And if you need help, everyone, you can find any of the ways to use any of these in your cookbook. I mean, we eat cruciferous vegetables just about every night, and I just need to do a little bit better with the berries, but these are so doable. And so you're saying immediately these will be pouring more benefits into your overall health and lowering of inflammation.
Yeah. We are getting a lot of junk in our food that's causing inflammation, but we aren't getting near enough of the antioxidants and the nutrient that fight inflammation. So let's start first by pouring in. And what you also find, I love this, is when people really, once they get in the habit of adding these three things each week or each day, it naturally cleans up their diet a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we
Motivator.
get to the point of, okay, let's look at what's acting as an inflamer in your diet. What might we need to reduce or get rid of or cut back on? It's a little easier. It doesn't feel as restrictive like a diet necessarily.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, those are 3 easy steps, and I'm motivated, and I feel like everyone else is. Okay. So now give us the things that most of us might need to just take out of the pantry or take
Okay.
out of the fridge and toss.
Okay, I've got one definite one, and then I've got 2 others that a lot of people may want to consider.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is our processed foods, and I'm talking about our highly processed foods, because the word processed applies to a lot, and there are some what I call minimally processed items out there today that are great shortcuts and time savers, like your broccoli florets that are already cut up in a bag.
Mhm.
Your frozen vegetables. I mean, those are great, just time savers. What I'm talking about are the ones with lots of refined oils, and some of those less healthy oils, ones with added sugars, ones with ingredients that you don't find in nature or that you would never find in your own pantry. I tell people the way to decipher, like we've got some great brands out there now, and I recommend a lot of those in Meals That Heal one pot. But people will say, how do I know if this processed food item is okay or if it's one I should avoid? And I use the example of salad dressings and like spaghetti pasta sauce. So if I pick up a jar of pasta sauce, what you want to see in the ingredient list, it's not necessarily 5 ingredients or less. That used to be what you hear. It really matters what those ingredients are. So I want to turn it over, and I want to see that the ingredients in that ingredient list are the same as if I was making that sauce at home from a recipe. So I want to see tomatoes. I want to see basil. I want to see olive oil, garlic, salt, pepper. Anything that would be in my pantry that I might use or I might find in a homemade recipe. Okay, that's my tip off. Also look for added sugars. Some may have just a touch of added sugar to balance flavors, but it should not.
But it's not one of the top 3 or 4 ingredients.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, and with salad dressings, it used to be really, really hard to find a healthy salad dressing made with a healthier oil, like. But there are some brands out there now that you can find, and they're really good. So,
do you mind sharing a few of those brands? Because salad dressings are a challenge for me as well.
Yeah. I think I gave a list in the book somewhere of some of the brands that I really love.
Okay.
I know like Tessie Mae's is one, Primal Kitchen. Basically, you want to find a salad dressing that ideally uses extra virgin olive oil or olive oil as the main oil. You want to see that as your first ingredient. Avocado oil is okay, and some of like your nut oils are good, but you want to see, that's what you want to see as your primary oil. Same thing with the pasta sauce. I want to see the same ingredient in that ingredient list that if I was making this at home would be in my recipe. So I want to see vinegar. I want to see maybe Dijon mustard. I want to see, herbs, salt, pepper. You may have a touch of some type of added sugar, but it should be towards the end of the list. A sweetener like honey or something, that's needed a lot of times in dressings to balance the vinegary flavor. So a little's okay, just not a lot. So that's my tips to people is, if you see something in the ingredient list that is something you don't have in your pantry or couldn't buy to put in your pantry. Yeah.
What aisle is the red dye number 4 on, please? I mean, yeah. If it's something that you're not going to find on the shelves, yes. And a lot of times too, if it's in a cellophane wrapper, it's probably highly processed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, you really have to look for those brands. And I do give a list for several food categories of brands that I like, because I don't make everything from scratch. I'm busy. I can't. So it's nice that we now have a few brands that we can rely on for shortcuts like this. But in general, your processed food, for the most part, your fast food, it's just an excess, whether it's refined oils, whether it's added sugars, whether it's trans fats, whether it's an excess of saturated fats or an excess of calories, they're a primary source. So the more you can get down to using more whole foods or minimally processed foods, the better.
Okay, I do want to ask you a question before we move to number 2 about the oils. Of course, extra virgin. I threw away all my canola oil and just had extra virgin and avocado. Well, I was making a cake the other day and the avocado oil was so green, it made the cake.
Turned the cake.
Yeah. And my husband, I didn't eat any. He said it tasted like soap. I think it was because it was an extra virgin avocado oil. Is there a light avocado oil that can be used amount per amount in place of canola, or is expeller pressed is it okay? An expeller pressed sunflower or safflower?
If you were using it like for baking, so, not for everyday use, then
Right.
I think an expeller pressed canola oil
Okay.
or sunflower or safflower oil is fine.
Okay.
But for every day, what I recommend is extra virgin olive oil for your dishes that are raw, like salad dressings that aren't going to be cooked, or for your ones that are going to be cooked over low to medium low heat. Now, once you get past like medium low heat, you want to make sure you use avocado oil, or that's my choice, because the compounds, olive oil has a low smoke point, a low heat point, so it will start breaking down once you get over a certain temperature. And some studies suggest that once it starts breaking down, it can create some harmful compounds.
Okay.
So any kind of roasting or high heat cooking, avocado oil. So really, I just have 2 main oils sitting in my kitchen. Unless I'm baking.
Great to know. So if you're gonna do broccolini in the skillet and get it sort of brown, use avocado. Anything that's higher than what, maybe medium?
Yeah.
Okay, that is a great tip. I'm gonna learn that. Okay, I'm gonna practice that. Okay, so what about number 2?
Okay, so 2 and 3 are 2 things that you may want to consider. And number 2 is gluten. Okay. So when your body has some low level of inflammation, every adult walking around has some inflammation in their body. The key is, think of inflammation as on a continuum. You just want to keep it towards the lower end of the continuum. Okay. So, but if you have a large amount or moderate amount of existing inflammation, inflammation is kind of like how we might be on a day where you have a really bad morning, you're just irritated. So even though you get past what happens, you're just a little more likely to react or a little more irritated.
A little on edge.
Yes, that's how your body is when you have some moderate inflammation. It's just a little irritated. So it's going to react to things that maybe normally wouldn't bother you, when your inflammation was lower. And gluten is one of those things that I see with that. So it doesn't mean you have to cut it out forever, but it can aggravate inflammation and aggravate your symptoms and problems if you have some, moderate inflammation already. So, there's lots of products now for, that are gluten-free. And honestly, though, if we are really following the, eating more whole foods and minimally processed foods, you don't come in contact with gluten that much. That maybe in a few whole grains, your sweet potatoes, your vegetables, your fruits, those don't naturally have gluten. So, once you clean up your diet, it gets a lot easier to kind of avoid gluten anymore. And, this isn't for everybody. And this isn't, now if you have definitely noticed that things flare up when you eat, gluten, then, you might want to cut it out. But, if you eliminate gluten for a week or 2 and you don't see much difference, you may be okay at the time. But as something happens with your health down the road, it may be something you want to eliminate for a little while.
Okay. And it wouldn't hurt to try and do without it for a couple of weeks. And if you feel better, then that's all the more reason to, because there's so many wonderful gluten-free options now. I mean, literally, this is the best time in history to be gluten-free. There's so many fabulous products, but okay. So that's a good one. Okay. So processed foods, gluten, and then what is number 3?
Okay, number 3, I kind of mentioned in the first one, processed foods, but it's added sugars.
Okay.
So we are getting an excess of added sugars every day. They use a lot, the obvious ones like sodas and sweet tea and lemonade and that kind of thing. But a lot of added sugars are hidden in products that we may not even realize that they put them in. Manufacturers will put them in to enhance taste. So we want to buy that product again, that particular brand, Now they're getting a little better because they know we now have the added sugars on the label. And, they know that some consumers are looking at that. But it's still something, I was eating some, I think, pop chips the other day, and I thought these were really good. And I was like, oh, look at the protein. And, and then I never even thought to look at the added sugars. So I looked at the added sugars. It was 3 grams of added sugars. I was like, why are they in here? They weren't even sweet, So really being cognizant of eliminating those just in your run-of-the-mill things, because, and I say this because, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I'm never going to eat dessert again. I am.
Mm-hmm.
So when you cut down, just those kind of invisible sources and then the obvious sources of added sugars, then it's okay to every now and indulge in a really good dessert.
When you can really enjoy it. All these things that you don't know you're getting added sugar, there's no big benefit. You can't really even taste it. That is a great point. It's a trade-off. Because I don't know many people who are going to go the rest of their life without having dessert now and then. Okay.
I will mention one other thing because I know you may get questions, and I probably should have included it with gluten. Dairy is the same as gluten. If your body's irritated, it may react. And if you have an intolerance or you have an allergy, then definitely you should avoid it. I have a lot of people who've eaten dairy their whole life, and then all of a sudden it's bothering them. Well, it's likely due to inflammation related to something else going in their body. And that inflammation is making their body irritated and now reacting to that dairy. So I really find if you just cut it out for a little while, if that is happening to you, calm down the inflammation, a lot of people can add it back, or they at least can add some dairy products back.
Okay, that's good. I will say, when you said that, I ate an entire pint of Jenny's ice cream like in one sitting, like last week. It's crazy. I'm going to quit buying it. There's no, it's insane. And I mean, in about 30 minutes, I paid for it handsomely. It was not, it was just very unpleasant. So that told me immediately, hey, there is a clear correlation between this pint of ice cream that I just consumed and me feeling so sick and having some abdominal issues. So I'm glad you threw that in. So basically then, Carolyn, what you're saying as the foods to avoid, definitely avoid processed and then added sugars. But you are saying that for both gluten and dairy, even if we are not technically averse to those, it can only benefit you if you get off, because they're not really helpful necessarily.
If you start noticing symptoms that like you didn't used to have, like your joints are hurting, or you're having new digestive or bathroom issues that aren't your norm. That's sometimes just little things, more headaches, that kind of thing. It may be worthwhile to just cut it out for a week or 2 and see if that eliminates. You'll really probably be able to tell when you add it back. And that's most beneficial too for people, because I hate it when somebody tells me not to do something, but I can't see a real reason not to do it. I like to see, and so not that I like it, but it's helpful when the body gives you a direct answer. You add it back and that joint pain comes back, or you add it back and you're bloated. That motivates you more.
Right. That's so true. Okay. Well, this is such helpful information. And as I know everyone probably knows, based on the books you've written and all the other things that there are more things that you could come back and share, but these are very easy, actionable steps that we can take. And I encourage everyone, I'm going to practice this over the next, I'm going to try to be very diligent to do this over the next 2 weeks. That's what I'm going to commit to. And whoever else wants to do that. And then would you come back and maybe I would love to hear from anyone who does all of these. If you notice a change, email me, let me know. And then I would love to come back and us look at some of the results.
I would love that. That'd be great.
Okay, everyone, I will link to this book, her first book, your podcast, your website, your Instagram. I love all of your things. You're just so adorable and you're so smart and you're so wise. And Carolyn, thank you. And then I know you and I are going to be getting together, so I'll be talking with you over the next few days, and we're going to have you back on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Carolyn.